Happy Chanukah, everybody. Welcome to the 5th night of Chanukah. And I'm Cassandra Sagan. I'm a Maggid, a storyteller and teacher. And the last normal thing I did before the pandemic was the Purim Spiel with all of you over at Cedar Sinai Park. So I'm happy to be with you tonight, although I wish I was really there with you in person. So we'll sing a couple of songs, we'll light our Chanukah, and I have a brand new story straight from the mythical town of Chelm that I will tell you. So let's start out with a little Chanukah, oh Chanukah. Chanukah, oh Chanukah, come light the menorah. Let's have a party, we'll all dance the hora. Gather round the table, I'll give you a treat. Shining tops to play with and latkes to eat. And while we are playing, the candles are burning low. One for each night they shed a sweet light to remind us of days long ago. One for each night they shed a sweet light to remind us of days long ago. And now I'm going to take my Chanukah and I'm going to light my shamus, and we'll light the candles and say our blessings. Okay. Everybody ready? Let's get all the candles in the frame. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'hadlik ner shel Chanukah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam sha'asa nisin la'avoteinu. We're going to add the mothers. Ve'imoteinu bayamim hachem azman hazeh. Hanerot, hanerot, hanerot halalu. Hanerot, hanerot, hanerot halalu. Anu madlikim, anu madlikim, hanerot halalu, anu madlikim. Our story begins in a village in the heart of the Jewish magical realism, the town of Chelm, which existed years ago in Europe, far beyond the pale of settlement, and where the souls of all the harmless fools had mistakenly dropped from the beaks of birds many years ago. In Chelm, everyone thought they were very wise because when it got really cold, they built a wall to keep out the cold, and everything was warmer. When they asked their rabbi, which is more important, the moon or the sun? He stroked his long beard and he said, well, I think the moon is more important because it comes out at night when it's dark and helps you to see. No one in Chelm ever left. Why would they? Life was perfect there. But every now and then, people took a wrong turn and landed up in Chelm. There were merchants and wanderers, adventurers, mystics, and outcasts. One time, a stranger was passing through, and he saw all the strange things people were doing. And he said, "You are all fools here. What a town full of fools." Well, Pincus the peddler said, "We are not fools. I would give you the shirt off my back." And so he took off his shirt and he gave it to the stranger. Mitzi the baker said, "Why, I would give you the shoes off my feet." And she took off her shoes and she gave them to the stranger. Morris, the town elder, said, "I will give you my only pair of glasses." And so by the end of the evening, the stranger had been gifted with 14 shirts, 23 socks, 9 pairs of shoes, a fur streimel, and a hearty bowl of chicken soup. Golda the mare ran home to get her wheelbarrow, and the stranger quickly loaded everything into the wheelbarrow and ran off down the road. "Shalom, friend," called the half-naked townspeople after him. "Wear them in good health." Really, how could people who are so generous be fools? Well, now comes our story for this Chanukah, called the 36th night of Chanukah. The story takes place in the town of Chelm, and oddly enough, it also takes place during a pandemic. Now, Zelda was a lovely woman who lived in Chelm. She was an artist. In the summer, she would draw pictures of snow and snowflakes to keep people a little cooler when they looked at them. And in the winter, she would draw pictures of flowers, and they would feel a little warmer looking at the flowers. Well, her husband, Shmoo, was a tailor, and he was a kindly man. Everyone in Chelm was kindly. And all of a sudden, he needed, instead of working in his tiny little shop with so many other people, he needed to work from home. So into their house, he brought his sewing machine, his scissors, his thimbles, his clippings, his rolls of fabric and patterns, his spools and spools of thread, many of them unraveling. He brought broken sewing machines that he used to gather spare parts when his machine broke down. And besides these work piles, there were the usual piles of socks and pajamas and nail clippings and newspapers. Every time Shmoo went to kiss Zelda, which he did all the time, he loved her very much, but his mouth was full of pins and she was getting all kinds of acupuncture on her face that she hadn't asked for. In the same way that snails leave trails of slime in the garden and bears leave paw prints in the river mud, Shmoo left piles all over the house. Well, the pandemic went on for many, many months. And poor Zelda, who loved a clean and orderly home, was having a very hard time. As Chanukah approached, Shmoo said to her, "Darling Zelda, it's been a very hard year. Is there anything I can give you for Chanukah to make things a little more cheerful?" Well, without a moment's hesitation, Zelda said, "I would like you to clean up the house, and for all the nights of Chanukah, just let me live in a clean house." And after quite a few moments of hesitation, Shmoo said, "For you, my dear, I will do that." And he did. Zelda helped, and when everything was clean and organized, she sighed a deep sigh of relief. Now, in the town of Chelm, they did not celebrate Chanukah exactly the same way that we do. They had heard about the ancient argument between Rabbi Hillel and Rabbi Shammai regarding the correct way to light the candles. Rabbi Shammai said that we should imitate the dwindling light cast by the dwindling oil in the Maccabees' stash by starting with 8 candles and working our way down to 1. Rabbi Hillel said, "No way, my dear dude. We are bringing in light and joy this Chanukah, every Chanukah, and so we'll start with 1 candle, and each night we'll add 1 more candle to bring more and more light into this dark time." Well, obviously Rabbi Hillel won that argument because this is the way that we light our candles. This is the way my grandparents did it, and the way their grandparents did it, and their grandparents, and their grandparents, and their grandparents. Well, on this year, during the pandemic, they were lighting the candles like we are in the Hillel style, from left to right. And in town, there was the big Chanukah in front of the synagogue. And so they were lighting the candles the first night, the second night, the third night, the fourth night. And on the night of the 4th night, Zelda had a thought. She thought, I wonder if there's any way to make Chanukah last just a little bit longer, because Shmu promised he would keep the house clean for all the nights of Chanukah. And so what did she do? She went to the synagogue in the dark morning before the sun came up, and she turned the Chanukah around. Well, that night, and of course she brought a rag with her and some bleach because it was a pandemic and she had to be careful to keep everything clean. Well, that night when the town people, socially distanced with their masks on in little family units, came to the front of the synagogue outside to see the Chanukah be lit, everybody came to see the Chanukah be lit. And the rabbi saw that the Chanukah was facing in the Shammai direction. He looked at it and he went, oh well. And he lit 3 candles going the other way, and everyone sang the blessings, and they went home and they ate applesauce with a tiny little latke on top, as was their custom. Everybody was happy, and no one more than Zelda in her clean, uncluttered house. And so just before the very last, what would have been the very last night of Chanukah, Zelda went in the dark morning and she turned the Chanukah around again. The rabbi came out to light the Chanukah that evening. All the families were gathered in little clusters, socially distanced with their masks on. And the rabbi saw that the Chanukah had been turned around, and he went, and he began lighting from the other end. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then, well, Zelda was enjoying her clean house so much, she flipped it around again. And so on and on they went, eating sour cream and donut holes. And not a single person in Chelm complained about Chanukah going on for so long because, 1, they were in the middle of a pandemic and they'd pretty much lost track of time. And 2, everybody loved Chanukah, so why not? Well, on the 36th night of Chanukah, a peddler wandered into the village. And seeing the people of Chelm lighting their Chanukah in January, he said, "Fools, you are all fools. It's almost Tu B'Shvat, the birthday of the trees." The people of Chelm started to laugh. Zelda said, "Who's the fool? We've been bringing more light and joy into the world all these weeks. What have you been doing with your time?" Golda the mayor said, "If we did something wrong, that's wonderful, because we can learn something from our mistakes. And life, after all, is for learning." Everyone nodded, and raise their hands like this because they couldn't clap each other on the backs because pandemic. The townspeople looked at Mayor Golda and said, "So new? What did we learn?" Golda nodded her head. She said, "Here is what we learned. Next year, instead of turning the Chanukah around, we should be the ones who turn around." And so I bless all of us to always turn ourselves around towards light and joy, especially in these dark times. And Ma'otzor Yeshuati Lechanach Lishabeach Tikun Beit Tefilati V'sham Toda Nizabeach Li'etachin Matbeach Mitzer Hamnabeach Azagmor Bashir Mizmor Chanukah Tamizbeach Azagmor Bashir Mizmor Chanukah Tamizbeach. Rock of ages, let our song praise your saving power. You amid the raging foes were our sheltering towers. Furious they assailed us, but your arm availed us, and your word broke their sword when our own strength failed us, and your word broke their sword when our own strength failed us. Happy Chanukah, everyone. I know it's a very strange time, but we'll get through this, and we'll keep bringing in a little light and a little joy and honoring the good, noticing the good, and being kind and loving toward each other. Until we see each other in person,